Hey y'all, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Ashley and this week we are making fall beverages. I love this time of year when it gets cool at night and it's nice and crisp but not too frigid like it is in the winter, and you just want to cozy up with a nice warm beverage. I'm going to show you my favorite hot chocolate and hot cider recipe, and I encourage you to share it with those around the table or around a fire ring outside this time of year. Let's get started. With making the cider first. Now you can make this an adult only beverage and add alcohol if you want. I recommend a dark rum or something like Fireball, but you can also make it non-alcoholic and of course share it with the kids. So to get started, we will go ahead and add apple cider. We're making a good sized batch here, so you can scale this up or you can have it. And then we're going to add in 3 cinnamon sticks, and we're going to add in about 5 whole cloves. Then we'll add the zest of 2 oranges. So I'm going to show you a trick here that I like to use. You can either use a vegetable peeler, or I have a zesting tool, and you can either use the zester part right here with the little tiny circles, or you can make a strip of orange. So I'll show you how to use both. With the vegetable peeler, you're just going to go in a circle around the orange and create a long strip. So you want to move slowly, and that will ensure that you get a long strip rather than just short chunks. You're just slowly peeling the skin of the orange. And if you're really good at it, you can go all the way around the orange and not break it once, and you have one really long orange peel. I'm not quite at that level. And you want to make sure you don't go too deep when you're peeling the orange, because then you'll get too much of this white pithy area, and that can be kind of bitter. So we've got the zest of 1 orange, and then I'll show you with the other tool. This one's really pretty. It makes actually a nice thin strip, and this is usually a bar tool, so you can find it in that area of the grocery store or home goods store, and this will just make a thinner strip of orange. So maybe you want to use one for decoration, or you can use the thin strip in the cider, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and finish with the large strip. Alright, so we have the zest of 2 oranges, and then the last thing is to add a little bit of vanilla bean paste. Now you can also add vanilla extract, or you can scrape out a vanilla bean from the pod. But I like vanilla bean paste because I like all the little flecks of vanilla, and it's easier to keep on hand than the beans. You can buy it in a good sized jar for a fair price. And that'll give a little bit of sweetness to all the flavors that we have in here. Now we'll put this over high heat and bring it to a boil. Once it reaches a boiling point, we'll reduce it to a simmer over low heat and let it go for about 30 minutes so all the flavors can combine. To start making the hot chocolate, we're going to put all the ingredients in a saucepan. This is a whole milk and half combination. I like to use half whole milk and half and half. So 3 cups of each. And I find that this gives you really creamy hot chocolate, but it's not too heavy. Then we'll add some sugar. And we'll add some cocoa powder. And we'll whisk to combine. Sometimes I forget and I put the dry ingredients in after the milk, but I highly recommend putting the dry ingredients in first, then slowly whisking in the milk. It's a lot easier to combine the two. All right, once we have the cocoa and the sugar and milk combined, it will be a little frothy, and that's okay. It will settle down when we put it over heat. We'll add a little bit of salt, and this just helps balance out the sweetness. And then my secret ingredient that I like to add is a little bit of espresso powder, and this really brings out the flavor of the chocolate. But if you don't want any caffeine, or if you're giving this to children and you're worried about the caffeine level as well, then you can definitely omit it. I just really think it adds some great extra chocolate flavor. And now we'll put this over medium heat and bring it to just about a simmer. You'll start to see bubbles all the way around the edge of the pan, and that's when you pull it. You don't want to bring it to a boil because you don't want to scald the milk. As a kid, I loved hot chocolate, and I always wanted to put double the amount of chocolate into my cup because I always thought it was really thin and watery. So when I set out to make my own hot chocolate recipe, I wanted to make sure that it was really rich, but not making me sick to my stomach. So I settled upon using half and half whole milk is the right mixture, because heavy cream and all half and half just was a little too rich on the tongue and made it more creamy than it did chocolatey, and I thought I really wanted more chocolate than I did cream. But if you really like a creamy, hot chocolate, then go ahead and use the heavy cream or the half and half. And then when I used the whole milk only, it was just too watery for me, and I felt like I was a kid again trying to double up my hot chocolate packets. So that's why I decided on the milk mixture. And you can use any kind of chocolate. I use unsweetened chocolate because I also add sugar. But if you wanted to use chocolate bars and melt it down with the heavy cream and make more of a ganache hot chocolate, you can do that too. I just think this one's a little bit more approachable, and that you can put the hot cocoa and the sugar and the salt in a mason jar, throw it in your hamper, and then you're just putting in half and half in whole milk when you get to your campsite or you're over your burner. Or of course if you're in your kitchen home, and then you can just mix it up that way. So I thought it was a little bit easier to travel with the dry ingredients and then just adding the milk at the end. All right, our hot chocolate and our cider are just about finished. So you can see with the hot chocolate, you have a little bit of bubbles all around the edge of the pan, and that means that it's almost to temperature, and this is when we can start to customize it. And then our cider has been simmering for about 30 minutes, and it's just about ready to be taken off of the heat. So when we're customizing our hot chocolate, I'm going to add just a little bit of vanilla, and that is because I'm going to be adding some really fun toppings, and I don't want to take away from the flavor of the toppings. But if you want to add peppermint to the hot chocolate, you can add it now. Just add a little bit of peppermint extract or a little bit of peppermint essential oil. Or if you want to add your alcohol, you can add the Baileys or the bourbon cream or the Fireball if you want to cinnamony hot chocolate. This would be the time that you can do that. And we'll just give it a little bit of a whisk. And now it's time to add our toppings. My favorite topping for hot chocolate is whipped cream. And it's really easy to make your own at home, but if you'd like to buy the store-bought stuff in a can or fresh whipped cream that they sell at the grocery store, of course that's fine too. But making your own whipped cream is really easy, and I'm gonna show you my recipe. So we'll start with some very cold, heavy cream. And then we will mix it in the blender until it gets nice and frothy. And now that it's frothy, we're going to add a little bit of sugar. And then we're going to add a little bit of vanilla. Now we'll go ahead and whip this at a medium to high speed until it gets to a stiff peak. And I'll show you that once we get there. Now when the whipped cream just starts to come together, you'll be tempted to stop and think that that's finally a whipped cream stage. But you want to keep going, so I'm going to show you. This is actually called a soft peak, and you can't see a firm peak hold its shape on the whisking attachment or inside on the whipped cream, so it actually kind of falls over. So a peak will form and then it'll fall over. You want to keep going past that stage. So we'll go ahead and put the whisk attachment back in and then keep on whipping. All right, now we are at a hard peak stage when the whipped cream will form its own peak. So if you look inside the bowl, you can see that it holds its own peak and it has a lot more structure than the soft peak stage. And it tastes great. All right, so we will remove the bowl. All right, and now we're going to take a piping bag with a large star tip. This is how I like to pipe it into my hot chocolate, but of course you can just do a dollop of whipped cream inside. This just makes it look a little bit more fun and fancy. And we'll put it inside our pastry bag. You can also use a Ziploc bag and just cut the corner off. And then we'll just squeeze the whipped cream down. And it's going to come out like a star tip, kind of like the aerosol whipped cream can at the store. So it'll look really nice and pretty on top of the hot chocolate. Let's get the rest of the toppings and enjoy our drinks. I love toppings on top of hot chocolate. As I mentioned, my favorite was whipped cream, but I also like marshmallows and different kinds of candies and sprinkles on top. So let me show you how to assemble the hot chocolate. I like to go ahead and get some peppermint twists and put them into a plastic bag. And then just hit them with a meat tenderizer just to chop them up a little bit. And then we can sprinkle that on top of the hot chocolate on the whipped cream. So we'll go ahead and fill each mug with hot chocolate. And today's recipe makes about 8 cups, depending how large your cups are. So this is about an 8-ounce serving, and we'll leave plenty of room for whipped cream and toppings. And we'll go ahead and add whipped cream. Oh my gosh, this is going to be delicious. And then I like to just add a little bit of sprinkles. And like I mentioned, if you want a peppermint hot cocoa, you can add the peppermint shards on top. It smells so good. Or you can add marshmallows. So I love just regular puffy marshmallows. You can of course do the big huge ones too, but you can also do a nostalgic Swiss Miss marshmallow that they sell now by themselves. So you can add either one of those to the top of your hot chocolate. I say we should do a double dose of marshmallows and add both. And that is some great looking hot chocolate. All right, let's take a sip of it. It's so good. I love how chocolatey this hot chocolate is. It has a good thickness with the heavy cream, or with the half and half and the whole milk, but it's really chocolatey above anything else. And you can't taste the coffee that we added to it, just because that small amount of coffee just adds flavor and brings out that chocolate flavor rather than making it like a mocha, which of course you could do, but it just adds a whole nother boost of chocolate to it. And the whipped cream on top is just nice and cold and creamy. This is so delicious. Now let's try the mulled cider. I also like to add a cinnamon stick and then just a little bit more of the orange zest. And I add fresh cinnamon and a fresh zest of orange just to keep any bitterness from the cooking process carrying over into the serving of the cider. So we have just a good little curly Q in there. It's so, so good. It's really juicy with the apple cider, of course, but then you get the smell of the orange right when you take a sip, and it's just so bright and like a burst of flavor, and then you get the warming cinnamon and clove at the end. It's so wonderful. Thanks for joining me today in my kitchen as we made delicious fall beverages. I hope this inspires you to make up a big batch of hot chocolate or cider and share it with your friends around the fire this fall. If you liked today's episode, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. We post new content every week. Until next time, cook great food in the kitchen, share it with those that you love, and we'll see you soon.